Okay.
All right, so we are joined from Des Moines, Iowa, by speaker, social entrepreneur, HBCU grad, domestic violence advocate, expert, courageous fire. We thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule for us today. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Option Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you again for taking some time for us today.
Well, thank you. I think you said HBCU grad. That is not true.
Oh, I thought you went to Oakwood
No.
University. I was wrong.
I went to Oakwood University, yes. I did not graduate from Oakwood University, so yes, I did go there.
Okay.
Yes.
HBO, we'll still call it because Oakwood's a great school. So
Okay, since I can't see y'all, I need y'all to make some noise. What's up, y'all, in Mississippi?
there, man, come on, y'all. Y'all wake up.
What's up, y'all?
They
Where
all said
they at?
yo. It's in the loud bunch. They all said
Okay.
yo.
All right. Okay. Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to jump right in it because our time is so short. But you'll get my contact information at the end, you guys. So if you decide that you want to get more information, I'll also be sending Coach Packet some handouts that are digital so that you guys can take a closer look at some of the things. And I wanted you to have some reference material. So I wanted you to know that there's so many things about teen dating that is cool, that is awesome, learning how to understand what you like in relationships, what you don't like. I have two daughters and I tell them you should date a lot, a lot. But violence is very, very prevalent, and I want to make sure that there are certain things that don't get by your notice. Let me see, are you gonna advance for me? No. Okay, there we go. So I don't know if you realize this, but 1 in 12 youth are victims of teen dating violence, you guys. So if there's more than 12 of y'all, at least a few of you have already experienced this. In a 10-year study, teen dating violence was significantly higher among Blacks and multiracial youth than Hispanic, white, or Asian. And in 2021, 16.1% of multiracial teens and 9.7% of Black teens reported experiencing it. So first of all, you know that in the Black community, we're very private. So this is what's been reported, number one, so we know there's more. Number two, in the multiracial teens, a lot of them identify as Black. So the way I look at it, we're literally looking at a good at least 25% of Black teens experiencing teen dating violence just a few years ago. And the really sad and scariest thing for me, especially with my daughters, is that youth who experience teen dating violence have an increased likelihood of experiencing domestic violence as adults.
Wow.
So I want to tell you a little bit about me. Yes, I am a survivor of domestic violence. The thing is, I didn't realize I'd grown up in violence because my dad was not beating my mother, but he was emotionally abusive. He was verbally abusive. And so that set the tone for the way that I saw relationships, what was normal to me, what seemed appropriate, and what makes a good husband and father. So fast forward, I ended up in a marriage for over 13 years. And by the time the divorce was final, almost 15 years with an abusive man who was very similar in his ways of dealing with me and my daughters as my dad was with me and my mom and my sister. So studying myself along with independent studies on Black women across this country helped me understand that my reality was I've been living most of my life within predatory relationships, people I worked for, friends of mine, church relationships, extended family relationships. Predators are simply people who seek to exploit or oppress other people. And when you grow up in those kind of relationships, when you date within those relationships, that seems normal to you. And that is what you end up choosing because you don't know any better. I want you guys to know differently or better today. Y'all are going to have to get a little noisier because I mean, my name is Courageous Fire. That should tell you something. I'm come bringing noise. So I want you guys to participate today. I know it's a short amount of
Yeah,
time, but it
and we've got some,
will
and they're
make
asking
it
some tough
better.
questions we'll get to. Yeah, I've already got a couple questions
Cool.
we're going to get at the
Okay.
end, and they're asking some tough ones. So I'm glad they're thinking.
Okay. Good. I'm glad you are too. When I ask people to talk about this is a tough subject, it has to be a safe space. So please don't talk about things that people talk about and the questions that they ask outside of this classroom. Please don't judge anybody for the questions that they ask or the things that they don't know. Let's not make that kind of a space. So I'm going to read the words that are capitalized. I need you guys to read along with the bulleted points and out loud, and then I need you to commit to those as we read them. Okay, let's do this. I commit.
This is
Let me
a
hear you.
confidential safe space.
I will not.
Judge others' experiences or responses.
And what do you choose to do?
Learn from others. Apply what I learn.
That's awesome. When your usual way of thinking is nudged, sometimes there might be moments during this presentation that might trigger you. So if you feel hot inside, if you feel fidgety more than maybe you normally would, if you just feel agitated or irritated, those are clues that you might be getting triggered by what we're talking about. Deep breaths are good for that. Grounding yourself by looking at or touching other items in the room to establish that you're in the present, because a lot of times triggering comes from memories of things that happened before. And then grounding yourself by telling yourself, hey, no, I'm okay. This is the present. I'm safe here. There's going to be handouts emailed to Coach Paget that you guys are going to be able to get access to. So if you miss something while you're doing any of these grounding techniques, you'll be able to catch it in the digital handouts. So let's make sure you know what domestic violence or intimate partner violence or teen dating violence are. First of all, if you get this definition, you'll be better off than law enforcement right now, justice systems, child protective services, because none of them seem to get this. They're all still back in the 1970s looking for the black eye. That's not what domestic violence is. Yes, that's part of it, but it's a very small part of it. So first of all, it is a pattern of behavior. You're not looking for incidents of violence. You're not looking for a black eye. You're not looking for one type of moment. You're looking for patterns of behavior that are used to gain or maintain power and control over someone else. And get this, you guys, it can be a current intimate partner, but it could also be somebody that you dated way, 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 way back. So it can be a current or former partner. You're trying to gain or maintain power or control over the person, and it's a pattern of behavior. Teen dating violence simply is, it happens in teen dating relationships, but it's all that stuff that I just said from up top. You need to know the lesser known types of domestic violence. Again, in your handouts, you're going to get a link to a page on my website that gives you the breakdown of all of these. And there's way more than what I have listed on the screen, but these are the ones that nobody's looking for. I want you to know what they look like. So you guys have all seen somebody who is under coercive control, I promise you, because you've seen somebody in your class or somebody in your friend group who was really one way, like outgoing, open, jovial, comfortable. And then all of a sudden, when somebody came in the room or when they got a text or when they got a phone call, they stopped talking. They stopped interacting. They got fidgety. They got nervous. They got quiet. Their movements and even their choices change. Those are signs of coercive control. It's really you're looking for somebody who looks like they are being puppeted. And if you were to see the abuser in action, you wouldn't see them raise their hand. You might see them do things like raise an eyebrow. You might see them put their arm on the back of a couch in a certain way. You might see them lean forward. You might see them tap their pencil. All of these are clues to the person who's being abused. If you don't change your behavior the way I need you to change it, you're going to get a punishment, and you don't want that punishment, so you better snap to attention. That's what coercive control is. And that is one of the main indicators that someone is willing to be homicidal. It is not the person who's blacking the eye that you should be concerned about. It is the person who is operating with coercive control. The second one is sexual reproductive abuse or sexual reproductive coercion. It's not necessarily rape, but rape can be involved. But really, you're looking for the more subtle types. Those boyfriends or girlfriends that make their significant other do things that they know they're not comfortable with, but they guilt them into it or they shame them into it. or they coerce them into it. You know what? It's going to be over really quickly. I just really need you to do this one thing for me. If you love me, you would do it, etc. That's what that looks like. If you're in a relationship and you guys are sexually active, it might look like someone hiding someone's birth control to make somebody get pregnant. It might look like them sabotaging the birth control to make someone get pregnant. It might look like ignoring the fact that this person doesn't want to get pregnant and causing that to happen. I'm sure that you've seen things like revenge porn, but you might not have known the name of it. So that's literally when somebody takes illicit pictures of someone, either without their knowledge or without their consent, with the purpose of, if I want you to do something later, I'm going to threaten to show these pictures, whether it's to your boss, whether it's to your parents, whether it's to your new boyfriend or girlfriend. I'll do that and then I'll get you to do what I want. And those pictures are so scary because once you get, we all know, once you get something out on social media or once you get something out on the internet, it is almost impossible to recall all of the places that those images have gone. I will have to say stalking in the Black community is one of the most overlooked types of domestic violence. It is blown off so many times as somebody, quote, tripping. Oh, I ain't worried about him, girl. You know, he always does that. Man, he just tripping. Okay, stalking is one of the precursors very often to homicide. When a person has started stalking, they are usually already planning domestic violence, homicide. So stalking can be physical, showing up in different places with the intent to make you afraid or feel threatened. But it can also be going through somebody's phone, going through somebody's internet, going through somebody's emails, putting little ways to keep track of their conversations or putting on locations that they don't know that you're putting on them. And so now they can see every place that you go. The whole point of stalking is to unnerve the person, to make them fearful or afraid, but it is also a calling card to let you know, I'm ready to go the next step. You should understand that I'm serious about this at this point. Financial, a lot of times that happens more in partners who are married or cohabitating, but it can also happen in teen dating relationships. Do you have that significant other who shows up at your job all the time? Who texts you all the time when you're trying to work. That is for the, or who messes with you when you're trying to study for college because college helps you with your career and how much you're able to earn. Financial abuse isn't just them taking your money, it is also keeping you from earning money or keeping you from having the ability to maintain the money that you have. The last one is spiritual. It can look like someone using your religious beliefs against you to try to make you feel like you need to do things that they want you to do in this relationship that you're not comfortable with. Or it can literally be making fun of what you believe, belittling that, demeaning you because of that. I want to stop right there for a second. Are there questions on any of those types, or do we want to grab a couple of questions?
We're gonna have questions at the end. They are handing me questions as we go,
Okay.
though.
Okay, cool. I love that. So glad you guys are dialed in. So when you when someone has been a victim of teen dating violence, and I will stop here and say that yes, most of the time domestic violence victims, teen dating victims are female victims. That is true. However, it also can happen in same-sex relationships. Men can also be the victims of domestic violence, teen dating violence. So I don't want to make it seem as though it's a one-way street. It is definitely not. But I do want to make sure that I'm clear about the fact that most times the victims are women or females. If a person has been or has experienced TDV or DV, there is a trauma impact. Now, a lot of times people are looking for PTSD or depression or anxiety. But I need you guys to know that it can show up in emotions, mindset, or even physical symptoms, some of them life-threatening physical symptoms, simply from teen dating violence. So let's see what the emotional ones look like. There's a list up here, and you see them all, but I want to concentrate on the last two. If a person has experienced it, you've probably seen people, again, in your circles that just all of a sudden seem like they're just spacey. Like they used to be pretty, involved and engaged in all the stuff that you guys did as a group. And now they still come along, but they don't really interact. They don't really respond. Their emotions and responses are slow, or they are muted. They seem almost like how, there's certain colors like fuchsia that are really loud. They almost seem like a muted, pale pastel pink instead of that loud fuchsia they used to be. That is emotional numbness, and that can be a sign that a person has experienced TDV. Dissociation is way more common than you might think, as a signal of a trauma impact from TDV. So that can look like a person literally just going through the motions. You may hear somebody that you're close to saying, man, you know what? I was driving out to such and such and I just lost my place. And next thing you know, I looked up and I was over here and I don't even know how I got here. I guess I was on autopilot. Now, that can happen to us when we have a lot of stuff going on, right? It can happen to us when we're doing a lot of multitasking, but it can also happen when a person has dissociated. Literally, is it a disconnection? Because that is the body's way, the mind's way of protecting you. Like, I've been through so much, I can't take anymore. So we're just going to start cutting off parts of the human experience to try to give ourselves a chance to bounce back. People describe it as, I felt like I was above myself looking down on my own actions and interactions. That's dissociation. Let's take a look at some of the trauma impact of mindsets. Now, I will say that people now in my generation, I'm 55. So people in my generation say a lot, these kids today, they just act like they just so down on life. They don't never get happy about nothing. They always say there ain't nothing that's going to happen that's good. Why should I bother being happy? It don't last, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I get why you guys have some of these loss of hope, limited expectations about life. I get it, because you've inherited a pretty messed up world. So that's part of your trauma impact from the world you live in. But you will also see folks that are even darker than what you might look at as normal amongst your peers. Even more of a limited expectation about life. Well, hey, you got accepted to your favorite college. Aren't you excited? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to finish anyway. But they have a 4.0 GPA. Why would they expect not to finish? That might be a signal of trauma impact that is showing up in their mindset. And even in anticipation that normal life events won't occur. Yeah, I'm not going to graduate. Yeah, I'm never going to find a good relationship. Yeah, my job is going to suck. Those types of things are signals of trauma impact. Compound trauma behavior, is when we're looking at, first of all, there is the systemic racial impact of being Black. Then there is the compound trauma of TDV. You might see these traits show up in someone. I want to call out the last two specifically. People that aren't normally defensive, you start seeing them be really, really defensive, and you're trying to figure out what is going on with them. Why are they like that? That might be a signal to you that this trauma is not, they're not able to process it out. It's still going on, and they just cannot handle it. So now they feel like everything is coming at them, and they just start swinging. This one, emotionless, is one of the most important ones to pay attention to if someone in your circle or even you yourself are at this point. And some of the things that I've talked about as far as types, you're like, whoa, that sounds like my relationship right now. And if you have noticed yourself becoming super emotionless, everything that happens in your life, you just think, I don't care. I don't care. And it doesn't matter what it is, you just kind of dismiss it. I just don't care. It's not that you don't care. It is that it's gotten to the point that your emotions can no longer process information, process data. So it just starts flatlining. That's when you stop seeing emotions. Like, they don't laugh with their eyes anymore. They don't have tonal inflections in their voice anymore. It's kind of monotone. And they don't respond to things. They're not excited, they're not surprised, they're not happy, they're just flat. When a person gets to that point, it can be very dangerous for them. They may be at the point of being suicidal and thinking, you know what, I'm just going to find the nearest exit door because I just can't process anything else. Super important. If you're seeing that with yourself or other people, there is help. And you know what, Coach Paget, I forgot to put a very important one in here. I'm going to try to get it in the chat before we go. Please
Sure.
add this to what you send to the students for me. So what if you think that you or somebody else has experienced TDV? Doggone it, you can screen for that. Believe it or not, it's 4 simple questions and it's in the form of an acronym and it's called HARK. I wish that somebody had done this with me instead of asking that lame question, do you feel safe at home? What does that mean? Do you wonder if I have enough smoke detectors? Do you feel like I live in a bad neighborhood? What exactly are you trying to ask me? If you're screening someone else that you care about, very important, do not screen them around anybody else because you don't know where the abuse is coming from. So you don't want that person to get tipped off that you know something's going on, because I know that a lot of times when we're trying to help somebody, we're like, you know what, now that I realize something's going on with them, I'm coming for that abuser. They're going to know that I know. I'm going to start giving them dirty looks. I'm going to start cussing them out. Please don't do that. We'll talk about the 8 stages in the next few seconds here. But HARK is very simple. H is for humiliation. Have you been humiliated by your partner? Simple question, and it's a yes or no answer. Afraid. Have you ever been afraid of your partner or former partner? Rape. Has your former partner ever raped you or asked you or tried to get you to do something repeatedly unwanted sexually that they knew you didn't want to do? And then the final one is kicked, hit, punch, slap, etc. Has your former partner or current partner ever done this? Every yes question is 1 point, and 1 point is all you need for a positive score for TDV or domestic violence. You said you're going to wait for the info question, so I'm going to make sure I get this
They're
8
still
stage
handing them
domestic
to me.
violence. Oh my gosh. Okay. I hope we have time for all your questions. I'll do my best. 8 stage domestic violence homicide timeline. I need you to know that the reports that you hear on the news, again, everybody's back in the 1970s. Why? I don't know. It's in this country, but in the United Kingdom, in Europe, and other countries, they're on it. Like, they know what domestic violence looks like. Their police officers know, their judges know. I don't know what's going on with us. I'm trying to get us there. So I said all of that because domestic violence homicide is not something that just pops up out of nowhere. It is predictable. There are stages, and those stages are identifiable. So I know that you guys have all seen stuff with Jonathan Majors, Megan Good, Grace Jabari. They are the perfect example of the domestic violence homicide timeline. I think that I sent you guys a link to the video for that, so that you can watch it on your own time, because it's like 16 minutes long. But I took their timeline and I showed you the different stages of this timeline by using them. It's a really good way to like really get those stages set in your mind. The best thing that you guys can do as young people is know if you're interested in somebody, you think they fine, sexy, hot, whatever, that's fine. But before you make moves toward them, find out their history, you guys. How were they in their other relationships? Who do you know that can tell you the truth about what this person's been doing? Because stage number 1 is their history. Have they been controlling someone else before? Have they been stalking someone else before? Guess what? My ex-husband, who was abusive, was controlling with his first wife. If I had asked some questions, hey, would have been a whole different story. Stage number 2 is the commitment whirlwind. They say I love you super fast. They want to be your boyfriend or girlfriend extra quick. They want to move in together. They want to buy you expensive jewelry on Christmas for your birthday, or they want to go on trips and do overnight stuff. You guys just met. That is a stage 2 sign, you guys. Stage number 3 is where most people live on this timeline. They're living under the control of the violence. So when I was in the marriage, that's where I was, stage 3. There's usually a jealousy code or a loyalty code. If you love me, if you're loyal to me, as Jonathan Major said, if you're going to be a Coretta Scott King and hold me down, then you're worthy of being in a relationship with me. That's a loyalty code. A jealousy code is, I don't want you talking to nobody. I don't want you looking at nobody. That's how R. Kelly did his victims. They couldn't even make eye contact with other men. That's a jealousy code, and you live under that code. But sometimes we move into stage 4, where something happens that threatens the control of that abuser. And it could be anything. It could literally be you deciding instead of coming home like they told you to, you go somewhere else. That's a trigger because that threatens whether or not you're going to continue to live under that code. If that trigger does not settle down and you don't seem like you're going back to stage 3 for them, it's going to escalate. Now they have to do something to regain the level of control and power that they had. Sometimes that will look like love bombing. You'll get a bunch of expensive gifts. They'll write you poetry and songs and raps, and they'll take you out to dinner, and they weren't doing any of this before. That's to get you back under stage 3. That might be the way they go, or they might choose to escalate it to something more violent than you've seen from them before to scare you to going back to stage 3. If neither one of those happens and they're like, man, I'm losing it, then now we're on stage 6 because now there's a switch in their thinking. What am I going to do because I'm losing control? How am I going to handle it? And in stage 6, they're going to make a decision. They're going to make a decision to up their escalations, or they're going to move forward to the planning for stage 8. Stage 7 is when they start planning. Now they're looking up stuff online. Now they're buying firearms. Now they're getting hotel rooms in some really remote place. Now they're renting a vehicle. Now they're saving up extra cash. They're making a plan for stage 8 for the homicide. And then stage 8 is the attempt or the successful homicide or the homicide suicide. What
Yeah,
can
and not to
you
cut you
do?
off,
Yes.
and not to cut you off,
Mm-hmm.
we had a big case in Jackson a few years ago. A friend of my mother's
Mm.
met a man
Oh,
online on a Christian dating site, and
oh
and
God.
this is why it's so important. Always trust your gut when it comes to anybody. And
Yes.
he wound up murdering her. He's in prison
Oh,
now. But you dig up, he had a previous wife that was killed under mysterious circumstances. Now,
boom.
obviously this was before a lot of social media, but if there's ever, a red flag of somebody's past, find out the truth. You know, if
Yep.
if if somebody, if you're in a relationship with somebody, and this again, I'm not a big on offering opinions, but I'm going to speak an opinion on this. If you're in a
Please.
relationship with somebody and they have a problem with you looking up something in their past, that's probably somebody you don't need to be with. You know,
That's definitely somebody you don't need to be with.
me personally, if you looked up things on me, I mean, you wouldn't find anything, but if you did, I would appreciate the fact that you care about your safety enough to actually check. So
Yep.
if somebody is
Yep.
worth being with, and again, I don't know what she knew. I mean, God rest her soul, because and again, he took her to a remote national park in Colorado. She was pushed off a mountain, and they
Oh,
had, yeah, some of my mom's friends were on the story. It's been on 48 Hours. It's been on several national Dateline NBC, but that was right here in Jackson a few years ago, and that just goes to show is and I hate that it happened to her. It could have been she was desperate for a marriage. He threw a bunch of money at her. If she'd have done research on his past, I'm not saying she'd be alive today, but a lot of things could have been avoided.
could have been different. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Coach Paget. I appreciate it. So, can you do anything if you see that you're in one of these stages? Yes, you can. So a lot of people think that they're supposed to make some big move or make an announcement. Remember, you don't want to trigger or escalate them, so you don't do that. Safety planning is paramount, so important, because safety planning is for you to get away safely and for the people that are around you to be safe while you're making that escape plan. 75% of the people that we lose to domestic violence, it happens while they're trying to escape. 75%. So you need a safety plan, and you need an expert, not your best friend. They can be a part of your safety plan. You can make sure they have a copy of it. They can be some of the checkpoints. They can be some of the safe places in your safety plan, but they cannot help you do the safety plan because they don't know what they're doing.
And all of
So
our
many
schools have
factors
access
are
to
important.
this.
Yes.
All of our schools in our district have access to this. So if anybody needed to reach out, our counselors, our teachers could we could do the legwork for you. That's what we're here for. So I don't want anybody to think I'm
Beautiful.
worried. So all of our counselors, teachers, administrators would have access to this if anybody needed help. So I don't want anybody to not reach out to their
Wonderful.
school. We would be able to help in this.
Please, 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 please. You can call the number. It's 24/7. the number that's up there in the presentation. But I will say I check in with the National Domestic Violence Hotline every now and then just to see how long the wait times are. The last time that I checked, it was about 3 or 4 months ago, and the wait time was like 35 minutes. So if you think that you are in danger right then and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you probably want to chat so that you're not sitting there on hold. Um, but be careful. Remember that there is such a thing as digital stalking, right? So you want to make sure that you're in a confidential space. You want to make sure that you're not on some device that person may be able to track. But they will help you, and they will look at all of your individualized factors for how you're going to get away. Like, for instance, if you don't have a car, that's important to know. How are you going to get away, right? If you have children, just because you're in high school doesn't mean that maybe you don't. So if you have children, are they old enough to be a part of the safety plan, or are they going to need their own safety plan? Are you guys going to have to rendezvous later? All of these things they will ask you. When you finish the safety plan, it is something that you can email yourself, and you can email the people that you want to help you with it. Really, really quickly, because I want to get to your questions. Please remember these things, and this will be part of your digital thing that I give you. It's a pattern, guys. It's a pattern, and it has several types. The list is on that website. Those are the lesser known types that I listed. Yes, you can screen yourself or somebody else you're concerned about for HARC, and domestic violence homicide is not random. It has a timeline. There are 8 stages. If it can be predicted, then it can be disrupted, you guys. Okay. While we're getting questions, please go to slido.com on a browser on your phone or your computer, whatever you would prefer. But there's a number up there. Type in slido.com, hit enter in a browser. When it pops up, it's going to ask you what number you're supposed to use for today. That's the number up there, the 353-4657. There should be a running poll asking you what is the most valuable thing you learned from today. Please put that in there. Those answers will show up on the screen. Please start hitting me with their questions, because I want to make sure I get them answered.
Yeah, now, and we just, I'll leave this up a little while longer for them to, hold on, I'm trying to enter it myself to make sure it works, make sure I entered it right. Oh, I got it. I didn't enter it right. May help if I could read. Okay, yeah, it does work. That's awesome. So yeah, I like, encourage anybody for her feedback. But and again, I'm not an expert by any means, but I like I said, I think your message can really apply to everybody, because we have some great young men in here. We need these young men to be able to have these healthy relationships with these women, to be able to lead these families. And I think you also made a great point about, obviously I'm on the outside looking in, but their grandparents in the Black community, it was different when their time, because
Yeah.
the stigma starting to change, the narrative starting to change. It's okay to talk about these things. If
Right.
if you've been a victim, or somebody you know is a victim, it's not that nothing they did caused that. It's not their fault. The
Oh,
only,
thank you for
the only
saying
thing
that. It
yeah,
never
yeah,
is.
it's not your fault. I mean, sometimes you trust somebody too much. That's an easy mistake to make. But the level of violence you put up with is not something that you caused, and I think that's so important for everybody to know. And if you're around somebody that's been a victim, I think it's important to try to nurture that and try to understand. Don't just jump to conclusions about that person's just
Thank
angry.
you.
Try to have a conversation and say, look, what caused this? What can I do to help? And even if you're coming to me for psychiatric or psychological help, I'm not the best person to talk to, but I can at least point you in the
Oh,
right direction and find somebody who can help you. And I think I can speak for all the teachers in that. And it's like I said, I've got majority seniors with me here, and
okay.
I told them, and I told us before we came online, that no other time in your life is there more transition from high school to your next step, to where these relationships are so important, whether it be with your coworkers, whether it be with your employees, employers, your classmates, your professors, the people you meet at college that you could have a romantic relationship with. It's so important to be able to have that mental health balance, because that makes you more successful in the things you want to do. And I know this is kind of outside the box of what we usually do at school, but I think this is something that needs to be tackled, because I'm a big believer in not sugarcoating what's going to happen when you leave high school. And some people may disagree with me about that, but I just think that this is important to know, that these changes and these triggers, they're not going away, and you need to be able to be prepared for them.
I love it. I appreciate that. And let me just add on to that while you guys are giving me your questions. Super important to know that it is not something that you did. Predators, okay? So think of lions, right? Um, if we're talking about a lion, it's not the zebra's fault that the lion ran after them. The lion stalked the zebra first and said, okay, which one of these zebras has flaws that makes it easy for me to be able to catch them? Domestic violence predators stalk their prey first, and they are looking for the types of vulnerabilities that they are best at exploiting. So please do not think that there was something that you did. There's nothing that you did. The whole point of it was they knew what your vulnerabilities were, what your blind spots were, and they knew which ones they were best at exploiting. That's why they targeted you.
Now, and the last thing I want to talk about real briefly before we get to the questions is that I think all this shows that there is a need now more than ever for mental health counselors, for trauma counselors of all genders, all races. We'll have some first generation Americans that'll see this later. They need bilingual therapists. They need people that in this field now more than ever. And this is a great time. We got some great college programs here in Mississippi where they can start working and really, really serve a huge need in our community.
That would be awesome. That is the link that I put in that chat, Coach Paget. Psychologytoday.com allows you to filter therapists. And I set it to Black and African American therapists in Mississippi. That's the link that is in there. When you go in there, you guys, you can click on that link. You'll be able to see the faces and the names of them. You'll be able to see their areas of expertise. Some of them will tell you whether or not they're taking new patients. Most of them have telehealth. And so even if you don't have great transportation, you can do telehealth therapy at home. My oldest daughter does it at home in her bedroom. I do mine in my bedroom. I take my youngest daughter to therapy because she likes to do it in person. But you can get a therapist, and if you're on Medicaid with your parents' insurance, most therapists take Medicaid, and there's no copay for that. So you are absolutely in a great place, especially after the pandemic, to get the support that you need after you've gone to the National Domestic Violence Hotline to do your safety planning. Absolutely get you a therapist that understands you. Oh, and really, really quickly, make sure that you get your 15 minutes with them first. You ain't got to fill their paperwork out first. You ain't got to tell them your life story first. Decide if you think they're going to be a good partner. Ask them for 15 minutes in person or 15 minutes in telehealth, and tell them what you like, what you don't like, the communication style you like, what you, all of that, and watch their responses. If you like their response, they're going to make a good partner. If you don't like it, peace, get the next one. Okay.
Yeah, and there's
Okay, let's
also
make sure we get these
several places.
questions.
Yeah, there's also several places in the Jackson area that work with sliding scale as far as income base. So
Yep.
there's more help now than ever. But do want to get to some of these questions. This first one is Harmony Williams. She's a senior, one of our dancers here at Velma Jackson, wants to get into the cosmetology business. But she
Okay.
asked, how was your trauma that you had in the past affected your current friendships and relationships?
Well, I don't date. I don't. And I'm pretty sure that I'm done with that. It would shock me if there was some way that somebody could get my attention, because I'm just not. Like, it's been a lot. That was 15 years of my life in the relationship, or the whatever, the impact of the relationship directly. And then I'm still raising these two girls dealing with their trauma and my own. And so, like, that's enough for me. I'm done. And I also notice that there are times that I am triggered by certain things, and so
Yeah,
I'm very aware of what I feel like when I'm triggered, and I'm very good to myself.
that's awesome. And I think that goes back to if you're in a relationship with someone, speak on what triggers you. So that way there's not a shock, because a person that really cares about you is going to want to avoid those triggers. Whether it's a family member or whatever. So I think it's important once you trust somebody, say, look, when that happens, that triggers me. And I think just talking about it can really help. Great question here. This is DeKayla
Absolutely.
Williamson. She's a sophomore, one of our cheerleaders here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, what are some ways you can deal with someone who doesn't want to tell you they're being abused, even if you know they're dealing with abuse?
You know what? We keep saying people just need to admit. Why would they admit that? Like, that's just, it's, they know there's a stigma out here. And they also know, let's remember, they know that their abuser will escalate. They don't know the names. They don't know trigger, escalate. They don't know those names, but they know how this person responds. So there is a fear that they have of involving anybody else for fear of how he'll respond. So just let her know, hey, you know what? I saw something today. I think that you might find it useful. Is there some place that you and I can go together and just kind of hang out, and I want to share it with you? Don't text it to her, don't email it to her, don't call her on the phone because he might be listening or tracking, but get with her and say, hey, I found something that I think would really be helpful to you. And that's all you say. Then when you're alone with her, or it's your device that you're showing it to her on, then let her see, hey, you know what? I found this out today in class. I think that this can be really helpful to you. And Courageous Fire does talk to people who are in active situations because she's been through it, and she knows that people also need that sisterhood and that safe place to talk to someone who understands them. She's available. You can text her or call her and she'll get back to you. Sometimes they want to know that the person who's gonna talk to them about it understands, is not going to be judgmental, and that it's not going to be unsafe for them to do so.
Absolutely. I like this question. This is David Ford. He's a junior, member of our football team and our bowling team, kind of a cool combo. But he asked, what was your biggest motivation to become an advocate for healthy relationships?
I needed to see something restored that I feel like was taken away from me from all those years. So every time I lead classes with youth where they build healthy relationship models, I feel like I'm breathing new life into a new generation that I didn't get to save my daughters from in those years. Whenever I help women not re-enter the cycles of domestic violence through that particular training that I do with women, I feel like I'm getting a little piece of my years back when I give them theirs back.
That's awesome. Well, I got time for one more. This is Alexander Williams. He's a senior, and he asked if somebody is being abused, would fighting back physically be a good way to stop your abuser?
It depends, right? So if it's you or them and they are trying to do stage 8, then yeah, fight so that you can hopefully get the better of them and be able to get to safety. Um, a lot of times women don't fight back because they know that escalates him. And so if I don't do anything, he calms down quicker, and then I have a better chance of getting away. I have to say that the person in the relationship knows their abuser better than anybody else. And so sometimes yes, sometimes no. They, like Coach Paget said, they're going to have to trust their gut on what's going to be the safest course of action at that time.
Yeah. Now, one more thing I did want to add before we go. We obviously want to get again your info, but I'm also an Uber driver here in the Jackson area, and I have seen people that have used that as an escape, not just from violence, but from drugs or a drunk driver or whatever. So I tell every young person that's getting ready to go to college, have an escape plan. Have those apps on your phone. Have a way to get out of a situation, even if it's not a violent situation. People are doing drugs. You don't want to be there. If you're worried, I always say a sober stranger is better than a drunk friend. And then if you ever feel threatened, it's one button push away in most cases to get a car to get you there into safety. And then you can ask questions later if your parents worry about paying for it. So I'm a huge advocate for when you go to college, when you go to wherever, have rideshare available. There are more ways now than ever to escape unsafe situations. And I'm a huge advocate for that. And I encourage everybody to learn how to use it and have it available. Now,
I would
before we
agree
go,
with that, Coach. And I gotta add one more. I'm so sorry. I would agree with that. Ladies in the class, more than men, I have to say it. Don't go someplace by yourselves. I don't care where it is. Like, have a buddy, somebody that you really know, like your girl. Y'all have been through stuff together. You're familiar with each other. And then if you're still living at home with your parents, or your parents are still in your lives and they still pick you up and do things with you, have a safe word with your parents that you can text them, where they know when they see that word, there's a problem and they can help you. Have a
yeah,
safe one.
unfortunately, I've seen too many cases of, and I was glad I was able to get them away, of getting young ladies away from domestic violence situations, and I'm glad they need to do that. Now we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for fitting this in your schedule and doing this for us today and having a platform to speak on this very important issue. But before we go, again, tell us your website, and then
Yep.
what is the main thing when it comes to having a healthy relationship these kids need to know as they transition out of high school?
Okay. My website is cfirellc.com. It'll be in the handout though. cfirellc.com. My phone number to text or call is 515-428-0077. And the most important thing I can say to you is trust your gut, period. It will never lead you wrong. You don't have to know why the indicator light is going off. It doesn't matter. If you hear that light, see that light, if you feel that thing, trust it and get out of there.
Love it. Well, again, Courageous Fire, all the way from Des Moines, Iowa. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay, take care, guys.
See ya.